The 16th of Nullig 2023, the 16th of December 2023 from rural Ireland here. And just from the comments section, most comments are favourable to my opinion. There is one or two which aren't, and the biggest problem is knowing exactly what the person is saying. The comment actually could be taken up two or three ways. And one of the faults of people, and particularly men, I have found all my life, is that they expect you to know what's in their head. They expect you or me or somebody else to know what they're thinking. So you should know that yourself, And you ask directions on the road, so you can't miss it. They know it and they expect you to know what's in their head. So please be aware of that. Write enough detail so we know what the comment is. In any event, 90 migrants have arrived in Ballyshannon in Donegal as part of a pattern of this plantation that's taking place. And there is a good deal of public opposition to it, meetings being held and everything else. And that's very good, because what's happening here is the Irish people, their common sense is being tested. Something is being pulled over on them, something with profound implications, and they're kicking up. And I'm just part of that as well. Now, the thing about the EU, the European Union, is it bypasses the natural land borders and the natural sea borders that Ireland would normally enjoy. If we weren't in the EU, there might be a bit of haggling, and we'd still have lefties in Dublin that would be trying to take in migrants, but we wouldn't have this systematic system. And what happens is the migrants arrive somewhere in southern Europe, from Africa usually, and they are then processed and allocated to each member state of the European Union. And it's not all easy going for the EU. Countries like Hungary and Poland even, and other countries like that, and Italy, don't just take it easily, but Ireland is welcoming. We want as many millions as you can give us. That's the policy of our government. There have to be some stresses in the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael ranks. There have to be a few people not happy. I would think that they've all been told straight, if you kick up on this, there'll be an election before the Christmas. There'll be an election called for early January. And in fairness, you couldn't blame anyone for not wanting that. That would not be good for democracy either, a rushed election like that. So maybe that's the fear of that, but that doesn't justify the minister for all the various ministers and the minister for who deals with this from having such an absolute open border policy and sending the councils around the country to get accommodation and do up the hotel in Carrick Cross and spend millions on this when our own people haven't a place to stay, and to try and change the demographics of our country so that they'll get the votes in future. And that's why it's so urgent to stand up to it. Now, a party, 170,000 came in last year. Some of them would be Ukraine and all of this. But Ukraine's only part of it, and at least with Ukraine, they wouldn't have a conflicting idea of religion or anything, as some of them would, and they'd be less likely to murder people, but they could, and they're not vetted. We don't know who they are, and there are all kinds of problems. Now, I put myself out on a limb. I've warned young and old Ukraine people not to fight for Zelensky. You must not fight for him. You must refuse to fight. And indeed, if there was villages and that, the right thing is have an uprising against him. Put him out, because he's in his dying days. I hear that he when he was looking for more money in America, which he didn't get yet, and don't forget Viktor Orban in Hungary has blocked a 50 billion euro EU grant because he has a veto in that way. But there was a number of offensives launched, futile offensives, 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 attacks, in other words, launched for no other reason than to put on a bit of a show, and they lost a lot of people. The total disregard for human life on behalf of the United States, the European Union, Britain, and that Zelensky idiot is breathtaking. But anyway, the thing about it is the population of Ireland is 3,200. What would happen in the morning if we decided to accommodate the entire population of Iceland here? It would be a big blow to our country. It'd take us a long time to adjust. And there would be big problems for education, employment, and everything else. And yet, over a couple of years, over three years, we'll have 600,000, twice almost the population of Iceland come in here in 3 years. I mean, it is astronomical. It's unbelievable. Now, so like, what if, for example, there was a nuclear attack on Britain by Russia or China? Would we have to take the whole of the UK in here? And also, what if Yellowstone National Park blew up? What if there was a nuclear bomb on the United States? Would Ireland have to take all these people? Why should we commit ourselves to any of that? Now, Ireland never agreed to any of this. We had to change our constitution for even the smallest things, even to cut the pay of judges. And yet you can bring in 200,000 migrants, and even more, even 1 million. You could bring in 7 million a year if they could get them in. And we have no say. I mean, is that right? Is that proper? What kind of a constitution have we that doesn't deal with that? And why did our founding fathers, or why did Eamon de Valera not see? He couldn't comprehend the viciousness of the likes of Eamon Ryan and Roderick O'Gorman, Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin and Mary Lou MacDonald and all of them. He just couldn't comprehend how viciously anti their country they are. Now, so we never agreed to any of this, and we can't have a constitution on this basic transformation and plantation of our country. Now, there's a poster there called Rare Sense 2916. Someone says it's a troll. I don't know. I don't even think there's such a thing as a troll. Well, he says it's nimbyism, not in my backyard. Now, I heard this before when I was opposing the pylons, and particularly the wind farms. Yet Article 3.2 of the SEA directive clearly says that all this has to be assessed when it comes to the environment and the planting of all these windmills. So nimbyism is you comply with the law on assessment. They refuse to do it, and we have them well tripped up in the courts. And what is wrong with protecting your backyard and protecting your environment? We're citizens of this country. Are we not entitled to have a say in it? We see what the NIMBY, there's no word of NIMBYism when Pat Kenny objected and went as going to court to block a residential nursing home up in Dalkey. Not a word about it. No word the fact that a barrister in Dublin 4 threatened legal action to stop them going into a hotel there. No, you see, it's NIMBYism when it's somebody looking at the countryman. You're only an old farmer with a Massey Ferguson. That's all you are. And that this is the idea. But I'd like to know, he says people should have more understanding for these unfortunates. Well, before you can judge them as being unfortunates, Rare Sense, I'd like you to tell me who they are, because I don't know who they are. There's at least 30 of them in Kingscourt. There's several of them in Bellevere. There's some of them in Crosskeys. And there's a big heap of them in Carrick. And who are they? What's their names? What nationality are they? All I can say in respect of most of the hotels, they seem to be Africans as far as what I can say. And this is consistent with the Swedish foreign minister who warned Micheál Martin that there was 500 million Africans wanting to come to Europe. So that's put two and two together. So how does he know they're unfortunates if we don't even know their name? And why is there no list given to communities of who's coming in? Why is there no list of who's coming in? No idea. If they're sex offenders, they have to go on the sex offenders register if they come from Cork or Sligo or Monaghan. And yet these people could be the very same. There's nothing at all. No controls at all. That is very, very suspicious. That's very suspicious. So Paddy Moriarty makes the point there. A lot of these names are not their real names, about a kind of reverse racism. I think that's what he's saying, but just Paddy, if you could be a wee bit more specific so I can understand what you're saying. Because we need to understand the posts that are made underneath. Those comments are very, very important and are a great guide. But if they're not logical English, we're in trouble. So the other thing is that there's a report there, well documented, that the Russians have horsed a big heap of migrants, I don't know where they're from, up to Finland. And Finland is a land border between Russia and the EU, and Finland has about an 800 kilometres, roughly, don't hold me to the exact length, of woody wasteland bordering Russia, northwestern Russia. And so they are flooding them in there. So Finland is putting up a wall to stop them, and you have a standoff with these migrants being forced by the Russians and dropped off. So you go on over there. And why is Finland now not accepting them? So why is it all right for Finland to try and stop them, and it's not all right for Ireland? And if Russia is doing that, how do we know that they weren't behind all this migration, them and the Chinese, in order to destroy the West? What greater way to destroy it systematically but with this type of uncontrolled migration? Add to that the climate change scare, which I believe was planted partly by the infiltration of Russian and Chinese students, not necessarily spies, just people that were given a few pound, a few euros or whatever, or dollars, to go in and plant all this stuff there. It's certainly very destructive for Western Europe, and it's not been followed anywhere in the Middle East or in Russia or in China, in India, anywhere else. Nobody's paying a blind bit of heed to the climate change stuff. So it's all very, very, very suspicious. Now, of course, one of the things about it is cowardice. It would take courage now to stand up to these people. And lots of people talk there about us going political, and hopefully we will get over the Christmas. I don't want to see an election for a couple of months yet, and hopefully we get over that. There could be an election. You wouldn't know what would happen. We're a very unstable government. And if that happens, well, then there will be people running and all that. I don't know how that'll go yet. And people are on to me there about getting people to run and all of that. I think that when you look at Rare Sense there and the comment, we will have a lot of bleeding hearts. A lot of bleeding hearts. We have a lot of cultural Marxist globalists who want this, like Declan Kearney, the Sinn Féin aspiring MP from Belfast. And you have a lot of this. You have Richard Boyd Carrot and Boyd Barrett and all of these bleeding hearts, and we're going to be faced with these bleeding hearts. And winning elections is only the start. These crowd are going to turn ugly, and how much we will be to protect it, to fight this off and to stop it and to use means. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous that the Irish Navy ships were in the Mediterranean saving migrants, and bringing them and dumping them in Italy. Who gave them the authority to do that? All of that has to be reversed. I'd say at the moment the Irish government is worried. I'd say they're a bit worried. And I think myself that if you look at the ordinary Irish people, we could be seeing a sea change of sorts. And as I say, one of the things life has taught me is that it's not much point in gaining a lot. It's used to say in the Bible, what does it benefit a man if he gains the whole world and suffers the loss of his soul? Well, I'm not particularly preaching that, but if we look at what happened to Sean Quinn, wouldn't you better off only make half as much and keep it, weren't you? And in a recent interview with Vladimir Putin, he had an interview thing, and he's announced he's standing for election again. But in a recent interview, he was asked if he could go back and talk to himself when he was only 30. He's now 70. If he could go back and talk to himself when he was only 30, what advice would he give to himself? And he says, the one advice and the big mistake I made is I thought I could trust the word of America, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the European countries, and all of the West, even Australia. He says, I now realize you couldn't trust them at all. And this is very true. You cannot trust the Irish government, the European Union. It's all corrupted. The fact that they refuse to ensure that environmental law is properly done, that the laws that they put out themselves are promised, the fact that they reneged on all that is evidence, just from my perspective, of what they've done. They have no right to fill Europe with migrants. They should have a policy to stop it. That policy might have to be very, very severe. It might have to be very severe, but they haven't the courage to do it. And now we have the Ukraine and Moldova has been offered EU membership. How long that'll take, I don't know. But whether the EU itself will survive in the next few years is highly doubtful. There are huge strains on it, but I won't go there for that tonight. So, folks, on the migration thing, we have a groundswell of grassroots opinion. What's happening is wrong, and this is what we have to look at. There's certain things that people take opinions on. For example, during the Cold War, the Irish people did not agree with Soviet Union and Chinese-style communism, and the church helped them keep it out. They helped to stick with the traditional parties. Of course, the traditional parties abused that. Fianna Fáil voted for Charlie Haughey, not George Colley, but that was the decider. And I think democratic institutions and democratic countries seem to have this give everything away, irresponsibility in every respect until it really comes to the crunch. And when it comes to the crunch, they're capable of seeing it differently. And in America at the moment, we could see that Trump could be getting back in. He looks to be doing very well. I think in the end of the day, people are going to have to realize, and will probably realize, enough of them, that what we're doing cannot go on, and they'll put the foot down. My advice then, as I've been talking about Conor McGregor and all of that, is whatever happens, and I made this point about making mistakes, there's no point what we gain. We cannot let a situation go where the Irish people will vote for my opinion, and this type of an opinion that I give here. We cannot let that go. If we don't have candidates running, and good candidates to fight, to do this, and to be there and try and beat these crowd, well then the other crowd will get in by default. That's the point, and we're working on that. I think at the moment it looks like Britain is finished. I'm not too sure if it's finished altogether. I don't like to see that either, but I think it's looking like Richie Sunak was nothing, only a spy. He was just a left-wing spy. He was Labour light, and on that issue, how did they get rid of Liz Truss? That's very suspicious. She was only in a month, and they dumped her out. Ha ha ha! Ha. Now look at if it quacks and it has web feet and it can fly, it's very likely a duck. So you see the pattern. We have an overall hand of a political institution, World Economic Forum and all that, and they are pushing this, and they're not going to stop under any circumstances. So we have to stop them for them. Folks, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and we'll see you back, and comment underneath. Keep them logical. I don't mind it being anti-me. Keep it logical. Goodbye.